Hey everyone, here is the Grumpy Scotsman to do another watch review with you. And what we are going to be doing today is exploring, is it worth spending the money on a Seiko? Should you pursue a model? Is it worth getting into it? What's the disadvantages maybe? So we're just going to talk about a few things, and not necessarily the watches that I have in front of you. That's just more for the video's sake, being that it's just all Seiko encompassing. But for the sake of this video, what we have here is the Seiko Pepsi Patty. It's a 200-meter dive watch. We have a gentleman's piece down here, the discontinued Seiko Sarb. And this is the first generation Seiko Shogun. And it is also a dive model in titanium. So varying pieces, all of them. And this is actually ones that I've personally worn and kept in the collection. So let's get into it. Is it worth it? I've owned many Seiko watches. I've owned Grand Seiko. I've owned different Grand Seiko pieces. I had the titanium version. It was a lot like the Shogun, and it had the kind of the hybrid movement where it was an auto and quartz integrated into one. The reason that I got rid of that particular model is because it kept getting magnetized. For whatever reason, I don't know what was happening to it. I did everything to avoid magnets. I wasn't doing anything out of the ordinary. And that thing just, it kept getting magnetized. So I had to keep sending it back to Japan, because you can only get those Grand Seiko movements, those hybrid movements worked on in Japan. And while they have great service, it takes a horrendous amount of time for them to get it, work on it. So they have it for like, every time I sent it there, they had it for a minimum of 4 to 5 months. So after the third time, I decided that I just didn't want it anymore, and it wasn't worth the hassle, and I wasn't enjoying it. So I got rid of it. I sold it, and I actually turned around and used that money to buy an Omega, a new Omega Seamaster 300, the ceramic one. So that particular model was disappointing. I was greatly disappointed. I was kind of hesitating all along to even purchase it, due to the fact that it was a hybrid. I don't know what it is. We're all funny, us watch enthusiasts. We have certain things that we just don't gravitate towards. And for me personally, it's a quartz. There's nothing wrong with quartz. It's the most accurate timepiece that you could ever get your hands on, other than a complete digital model. But with that being said, it was a step for me to go get it, and then to have all those issues was greatly disappointing for me. They didn't charge me anything. Anytime I sent it there, they didn't charge me anything. They even rebuilt it one time. I don't know why, but they did. And yeah, so they would send it back, and they would send it back with like a velvet Grand Seiko sleeve. And so the service was okay. It just took forever. And being that it happened so many times, disappointing. Some other models I had the black version of the Sarb, and I thought it was just a little small, so I got rid of it. This here is on, I actually gifted this to a dear friend, which I got to get back to her. So that's the only reason it's here today. But yeah, it's just a little small for me. I'm a bigger guy, so these models wear really tiny on me. So really, my models in here are the Shogun and the Pepsi Patty. And with these two, I had to actually replace the Hardlex crystal with sapphire crystal. And so that I was out of pocket for that, because if you've ever owned a Seiko watch with the Hardlex crystal, it's fine and dandy because it doesn't shatter, but whatever. We don't wear them for diving, really. Very few of us do. And they scratch like crazy. They really, really are horrific for scratching. So that's a downside. But I mean, it's not the end of the world to have to purchase a sapphire crystal, find a watchmaker, and get them to put it on there if you plan on keeping it and wearing it and enjoying them, which I do. I wear these two quite a bit. I rotate them on my wrist, and I enjoy the fact that I know that they're not going to get scratched, and they've been water tested to the 200 meters that they're rated for from the manufacturer. And yeah, so that's one thing that you're going to have to consider doing. A lot of, like, look at Seiko is a huge company. They have an absolute massive catalog that you can choose from. For instance, even their Shogun, which isn't the most popular model that they make, they have, I think, at least 10 to 12 different iterations that you can pick from this over the years. The Sarb is discontinued. There was a handful of these. The Turtle, my heavens, don't even get me started on how many iterations of the Turtle are out there. So there's something for everybody. And that's an amazing attribute that they do have. So, but it also is kind of a black eye, if you will, because as watch enthusiasts, we enjoy when things are rare, you know, discontinued. Like Rolex has this thing where they'll play out a watch for a while and then they'll discontinue it, and then it becomes a legendary piece that almost becomes impossible to obtain. And a lot other brands do that as well. So it's one thing that maybe they should fix a little bit. Another thing that Seiko has that is a little bit of a black eye, not to be picking on them right now, but it's the truth, is their quality control. I've had a few pieces that have been misaligned, and I hate it. You spend a couple $100 or $1,000 or $2,000 on a watch. You don't want a misalignment of the bezel to the chapter ring. These two here are perfect. They're impeccable. Thus, they're in my collection. But I've had quite a few that are not. So I had to get rid of them because it just annoys me to own something that is imperfect like that. And one last thing to pick on Seiko. One last thing, and then I promise I'll be good to them, is the fact that they have really, really shitty bracelets. Even with my Grand Seiko, my titanium Grand Seiko had a deplorable buckle. It was thick, it was gaudy. It looked nice because it looked like engraved, and it had the beautiful lion's head in there and everything, but it was impractical. It was thick. It's just, and a lot of their bands come across chintzy and cheap. They rattle around like this. This Pepsi here has a really chintzy, rattly bracelet. So oftentimes I'll throw it on a NATO or a silicone strap just to, dress it up. And then, also don't have to hear that if you're out working or doing something. But those are my critiques. Now, there's many amazing attributes to Seiko. Their quality of their case, their quality of their bezel. Um, they're like here, if you look at the Sarb, this thing is legendary by all standards. It has raised indices with sloped, they're sloped on the ends and polished, and they're notched in the middle. The Dauphine hands, just the seconds hand there, how it's hollowed out, and it's just delicate and perfect. The applied logo, the antique dial, and then when you get into some of their Alpinist models, wow, like gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. And even if you look at the Pepsi, which is a sports watch, it's not meant to be um, elegant really in any way. It's meant to be a complete tool watch, but you look at it and it has like a semi sunburst blue dial, has perfectly applied Lumibright markers, just everything on it. The color matches the bezel, and the blue and the red are perfect. The numerals on the bezel work, and same with the Shogun on this first generation. uh yeah, they're just spearheaded here. It's just, there's so many details on them that it, well, they just create their own cult following. That's, it's just like Rolex has its cult following, Seiko has its cult following. um I know that, like, one slight against their movements, their automatic movements, like their 6R15, 6R36, all their 4R movements, from past to present, they have a tendency to not be the most regulated movements, but you can actually regulate them top notch. You can get them not necessarily to within Swiss COSC certification specs, but you can get them extremely tight. Another thing that I love about Seiko is these guys were founded in 1881, and that's 143 years old. 143 years that they have continuously been in business. Um, and they make everything in-house. All their movements, research, development, everything is in-house. You can't go wrong with that. The only other watch manufacturer that I could kind of um, come close to, Swiss-wise, and I get it, it's not close like with the craftsmanship, really, unless you get into the Grand Seiko stuff. But Patek Philippe was around since 1839, and that's 185 years old. Um, like, these two watch manufacturers are old and continuously been in business. So yeah, Seiko, 143 years old as of 2024. That's awesome. So you have this brand which is steeped in history. They're accessible. Seiko isn't stupid. They don't make their stuff completely inaccessible unless it is like a limited run, which is deliberate, or they discontinue a model, which they've clearly stated it's going to be discontinued, so it's not their fault again. It's just a brand steeped in history. And another thing is, yeah, all their movements are in-house. You don't get that at this price range very often with many brands. It's just all in-house, everything. A lot of these models, like these turtles, have been around since the 50s. I mean, the Sarbies, they've been around for, I don't know, 15, 20 years, if that. So these are newer models, but like, they have a lot of models that have been around for a long time. Like, They're King Seiko. I wish I had a King Seiko to show you. Those things are just wow. Unbelievable. And I know here a couple years ago, they actually went out of their way to completely separate Grand Seiko from Seiko, just so it didn't have that blight on it and that it could just have its own little house, its own little prestige. But yeah, it's just awesome. I just love the brand. They're fun, amazing. They have some things that they definitely need to fix, especially being that they're charging more money now for these watches. You're gonna charge more money. You gotta step it up a little bit. They're starting to put, like, on their second gen models of Shogun, they automatically have a sapphire crystal on there. I don't know on the Patty Pepsis if they have sapphires, but they should. Shame on those. Hardlex crystals are awful. That's all I gotta say, you guys. So is it worth the money? Yes. Are you expected to make much money on it? Some models you can. Like, this isn't mine anymore, but this Sarb I purchased for $800 to $900, and now you can definitely sell them for quite a bit more. Especially this one here. So you can make money on some of these if that's your end goal, but you should never be trying to make money on watches. That's kind of a losing game unless you're in the Rolly business, or you're exchanging $20,000 to $30,000 watches constantly, and you're getting good deals because people need the money. But yeah, so as a watch enthusiast, I think these are good investments. I think you gotta really do your research, go to a boutique store or something, and just have fun trying them on, and then go sourcing out best prices. And as I always say, make sure you buy the seller, not the watch, because buy both. Buy both. It's an art within itself. If you're buying watches online, God only knows it's an art. You could get screwed so easy unless you're not doing it in person or buying it from a trustworthy friend or from a watch club that you're a part of. Anyways, that's all I got to say, folks. Cheers.